So my Australia tour is over and I've got a little bit of R&R time, so I'm here in a field in Tasmania. Thought I would take the opportunity to talk to you about the reaction that there's been to this Netflix series, Adolescence. And full disclosure, I have only watched clips of it. The idea of sitting down and watching hours and hours of storyline about gruesome misogyny motivated crimes does absolutely nothing for me, and I absolutely have no intention of watching the series. I've got much better things to do with my life, thank you. Also, it's not really going to teach me anything new, isn't it? I'm aware of online misogyny. Look at the comments under my old videos before I stopped putting comments on them. There's three things that I really want to talk about though. First is this frightening reaction that people are having, saying, well, this just shows that feminists need to be nicer to guys because otherwise you're pushing men away, and that will push them, especially young men, into the arms of Andrew Tate and his ilk. First of all, the idea that feminists are being horrible to men is completely misleading. Feminists have never been horrible to men. We've always been calling out rape and abuse and violence. And of course, we are calling out a culture that promotes and normalises those and tells guys that it's okay to do those things. And of course, we're also calling out the people who do those things. But in actual fact, like, cleaning those two things up would make life a lot better for the vast majority of men, because they wouldn't be raised in this culture. They'd be much better able to form meaningful, loving, caring relationships with women and other men around them. It would create a situation in which they're not feeling like they need to prove themselves by being violent, in which they're not feeling inadequate if they don't have, innumerable sexual partners and all that kind of stuff. Feminists have always been on the side of that. And the idea that somehow the Andrew Tates of this world offer a more welcoming response. Have you seen the kind of videos that he puts out? He's absolutely screaming at teenage boys that they're inadequate, they're not good enough, they need to measure up to these impossible measures of having tons of money, tons of sex with women they don't even like, without forming any emotional attachment. It's disgusting. If you think that is warm, welcoming, opening arms, then you don't actually know what these videos are like. And if you think that feminism is frightening and terrifying, then you're not really paying attention to feminism. And in fact, that narrative that feminism is terrifying and somehow the answer is something that the misogynist TikTokers are offering, then you're buying into the message that Andrew Tate and his ilk are trying to put out. And it's an age-old message. It's been around since time immemorial that women are evil and they're up to no good and there's some sort of trick afoot. I mean, it is the witch trials. It is literally the witch trials, if you believe that stuff. Secondly, there's this message, well, the response has to be to find more positive, constructive male role models, more positive ways of expressing masculinity, right? And I just don't vibe with this. I don't think that young men need to be told how to be masculine. Is there a dog shitting behind me? I hope so. I love a good rando video upstaging. Good work, mate. The idea that there needs to be a different way of being, I don't think that people need to, any more than you need to tell your daughters of a better way of being women or a better way of expressing their femininity. Let's tell people how to be good, constructive citizens. Let's tell people how to be kind to one another, how to fight against injustice, how to be part of making the world a better place and work together. And that does not have to be by immediately demanding to know people's gender and then assigning them roles based on it. That doesn't help anybody. We already know that lots of people feel very restricted by these gender roles, so let's stop pushing them on people instead of trying to shift them to something a little bit less criminal. And finally, the most frightening response is Keir Starmer saying that he's going to encourage schools to show this series in schools to young people. Firstly, the series is not aimed at young people. It's pretty heavy stuff. We know that there will be young people in these classes who have themselves been victims of sexual violence, who have themselves been victims of other kinds of violence, and this kind of stuff can be very triggering. We know from historic research that those films that I got shown when I was a kid of like, don't go near electricity pylons because here's a video of some kid on fire and when he was trying to retrieve his frisbee. And I know, as I've said that, half of my viewers have had an absolute flashback to that horrible image. All the research says that that stuff didn't improve safety at all. I lived in the countryside when we were a kid, so we also got the farm equipment that was gradually killing people off and kids getting mown down by combine harvesters. It didn't work. It didn't make anybody's lives safer, not least because abuse often, and danger often doesn't look like the thing you've seen on the video. That often presents a very stereotyped and specific type of thing. In actual fact, abuse can be much more insidious, and there are lots of different ways, and it's much, much healthier to be talking about it and talk to women's organisations and groups that are specifically there to challenge these misleading and dangerous narratives and to talk about how to keep safe and how to make sure that you don't endanger others. That kind of stuff doesn't need to start with frightening kids with these terrifying videos, which we know can actually be harmful to them. But also, these are kids, and this is a series just on its own that could be interpreted by people with no guide on how to interpret it in a lot of different ways. What is going to happen when young boys start quoting lines from it as a joke, when people start saying, don't you dare bully me, or I'll adolescence you, right? That's how playgrounds work, and we're just not solving a problem by showing people an example of how it might happen and expecting them as young children to understand that that's wrong and not okay. We have to talk to them about how it's wrong and not okay. Now, also, as far as I understand from the series, the boy in it, who is the perpetrator of the violence, is depicted as like a fully rounded character. You meet his parents, you meet his family, you hear about his hopes and dreams and what he's good at and all the rest. And the girl who is the victim of it, you don't really get to see much about her. She is presented merely as someone who has been bullied and who has been bullying and has subsequently been stabbed. And so we're already creating a situation in which we're kind of empathising with the male character and not with the female character. And I just think that Keir Starmer is failing to listen to women's groups, experts in child psychology, all that kind of stuff, and instead knee-jerk, crowd-pleasy solution. This'll do. First thing he's thought of. It's free, it's easy, jumping on the bandwagon. And what he needs to do is to start thinking about how we as a society can build in a completely different way and build a society that's much more constructive. And that is not an easy one-step solution. It's a much more complicated solution, but it's one that is worth doing because we do want to live in a better society than that. And one of the things we would need to talk about is why the social media companies are constantly pushing this very, very misogynist content on us, and we're not getting a lot of positive, constructive feminism and all the rest being pushed on us. And I think that's the conversation Keir Starmer needs to step up to, and we need to be very wary of the messages we're sharing when we talk about this, because it is not the simplistic answer that a lot of people are suggesting it is. See you next week.
Increasingly, the mainstream media is terrible at informing the public of what is really going on. I'm only able to make these videos because people are generous enough to sponsor me making them, and if you're able to be a part of that, I would hugely appreciate it. It can cost as little as $1 a month, and you'll get loads of fun bonus content and lots of extras from me and my undying gratitude. I also massively appreciate it if you're able to like, share these videos and let people out there know what's going on.